Marker. There we go. Sync.
I know the problems.
You know
I know many of the problems.
You know the drill.
Yes.
You know the problems, but do you know the answers? That's the...
My job is to discover the answers.
I like that. That's a good way to frame what we do, I think. I can't remember who said it, but I heard somebody say once that as an artist, your job is to pose the question and not the answer. Do you agree?
I think so.
Yeah.
Kind of the inverse of my previous employment style, you know?
I was gonna say, yeah, you sort of switch from one side of the brain to the other, it seems like.
Yeah, going from the world of engineering for 15, 20 years to jumping into the arts was a pretty big gamble for me, but you know, I think something needed to change and there was something that needed to be answered and just had to go into it.
Love it. Well, speaking of getting into it.
On your left.
You're listening to Doc Walks with Ben and Keith.
Okay, all right. I am joined this morning by director, editor, producer, composer, ex-engineer,
Yep.
AI developer, David Liu.
Yeah.
David, how you doing this morning?
I am doing okay. It's a nice, toasty, muggy morning in Austin, as it usually is in the summer.
It is the summertime. We are in Austin. We're here at Mueller, and we are walking around the lake. We're looking at ducks. We've got a pretty temperate, breezy, nice morning, actually.
Yeah,
like the ducks are over
not
here.
too bad.
And I love that we chose this spot. I like this walk, but I also chose this because we are close to one of the businesses that you feature in your new documentary, To Be Seen, which has just made its premiere at the Austin Film Society. Mm-hmm. And it focuses on 4 restaurants here in Austin, Texas.
Austin Film Society's cinema.
Austin Film Society Cinema.
Yeah,
right.
They always have to specify the AFS Cinema.
Okay, that's where it premiered.
Yeah, it premiered, and then we had the Bob Bullock played on the 13th, and then the Austin Public Library on the 14th.
Cool.
For the centennial celebration.
Oh, great. Okay, so you're doing like a tour of Austin institutions to show this film about 4 Austin restaurants and their reaction to the pandemic. And the restaurants are Loca de Oro, which is here in Mueller.
Yep.
Foreign and Domestic.
LeRoy and Lewis Barbecue.
LeRoy and Lewis Barbecue. And remind me of the Pho trailer.
Pho Craft.
Pho Craft. That's right. And previous to this, I want to ask you how you cast your film and all about the process of making your film. But you have one of the most unique backstories of any of our guests so far. So rather than explain it, I want you to tell us how you came to documentary filmmaking.
Well, I think the weirdest part is I never tried to get into filmmaking. I think the problem is I during the pandemic, I tried to start writing music. And then I was like, oh, this composing thing seems cool, but I'm not in LA and I can't really compose my own film. I can compose somebody else's film. So one of my friends said, oh, you can just make your own film. And nobody can stop you from composing it. Wow. And that terrible idea led to me having to find a story that I felt was worth telling. And one of the things that happened is as I was kind of looking through the available stories and people I was connected to, I kind of tracked this story, at least at the start of the pandemic, of like the different restaurants that I commonly frequent or had befriended the owners or understood the story that was going on. And I started assembling like, okay, maybe this is something I can talk about. And that's how the beginnings of To Be Seen happened, is really needed kind of like a calling card project.
Yeah.
For the production company for what I was trying to spec it for.
Okay.
And that's kind of where everything led to the creation of 2BC.
Wow. Yes, you came at this probably the hardest way possible. So you wanted to score films. It was your goal, and you decided to create a film that you could then score. So what instruments do you play, and why scoring films? Why does that appeal to you?
I felt like scoring films was interesting because it was a different way of musical expression. I kind of failed at general music writing for like, you know, your general pop songs and standard song structure. But something I found out I was ironically good at as I was kind of making my own vacation videos is like scoring to picture, which is kind of a different skill than standard songwriting.
Yeah.
So it kind of led me down this weird path. I mean, but I think the strange part about composing is you can just be bad enough. You need to be good enough and bad enough at every instrument just to get it into the computer. And then you just got to start like time aligning and everything. So it's, you know, this running joke of you can play every instrument badly and that's a composer.
Yeah. Oh, funny. Okay. So that's
Just
actually
good enough.
true in your case.
Yeah. I think the running, well, and it's this common running joke among many composers. I mean, if you look at the experiment process, we're looking at unique instruments that we're probably never going to play well.
Right.
But it's the texture and the tonality of what they represent for what emotion you're trying to capture on the picture.
Sure. Yeah.
Really gets it there.
That's so cool. Okay. So did you get bit by the documentary bug then, having made your first documentary?
I mean, yes and no. I mean, I think the weird part is I was ironically hoping to get into narrative after this, but the industry has kind of spoken for me on what they want. And so, I mean, I think I'd probably be doing at least another few in whatever format and medium that it requires, but kind of the doc, nonfiction, high cinema space is kind of what I'm going to be stuck in for a little bit.
Yeah, stuck in. Yeah. Okay. Well, okay. So here I jumped forward a little bit. So
Yeah.
you decide to make this film, but I guess let's go all the way back to the transition from working in AI to deciding that you wanted to do something different. Tell me about that, and let's go this way.
Yeah. So what happened is you know, I had gone into engineering many years prior, and you know, I changed from hardware engineer to software engineer to product designer to, you know, to completely different roles, but all within the same ecosystem of mathematics, AI, machine learning, software libraries that make it run, and then ultimately into kind of the AI space before it was kind of big.
Yeah.
And
So what years would these be?
so this is like 2018,
Okay.
and then 2019 to 2020 is kind of the years where I, you know, kind of my career started taking off.
Okay.
And in that time, I was like, well, I have the space that I've really dived deep into,
Yeah.
but my brain feels like it needs something else. Or my gut instinct tells me that I need to balance it with something, because what if it goes wrong?
Oh, and
Right.
it being AI specifically?
Yeah.
And so,
Like anything in the tech or space, right? Any technology, doesn't matter if it's AI or anything else. What happens is if you get so deep in one area that you know it really well, and you know that, well, is the industry gonna go crazy, drop out, do something else? Do I have a play in it? And if you go, I don't know, I don't think so. I kind of need a hedge against it, just in case, you know, this is a space that I kind of don't want to play in anymore. You find what that is. So I look for the most opposite of, of that space, which I guess now we know is documentary, right? I mean, it's the one place that you can't really use said technology in
Right.
without it changing its medium.
wow, say more about that, because this is actually making me feel really good that I hadn't thought about documentary being almost like the exact opposite of AI, or maybe like an antidote to AI. So tell me more about what you mean.
Well, I mean, I think if you let's say that you do use AI in that space. Sure, you're in one medium. Maybe you're in the short form medium. Maybe you're in high-end narrative, and you're using it in that space. Well,
Sure, or an animation.
right.
Yeah.
All of those are kind of applicable, and it is applicable in space. It is a tool.
Yeah.
It can be used for, properly, improperly, doesn't matter. But the one place where it completely changes medium is if you try to use it in doc. Then it's no longer a doc, right?
Right.
So the irony is documentary is looking for high authenticity,
Yeah.
right? That's the thing that makes it good. And when I set out to make this film, one of the things I didn't like is where doc was going.
Oh, interesting.
Right? Like, there's a little bit of the artifice of doc that just, I wasn't happy watching it, right? The interviews are too lit. You could tell stuff's been rehearsed. It's the same kind of formulaic setup that they teach you in film school in every book. Oh, you follow one person, you either get it and they don't get it.
Right.
And what happens is you fall into what I call a formula which really incentivizes like a model in which you're chasing after celebrity-esque people. Because
or crime or
right.
cults, right? The three
Right.
C's. Yeah.
And I remember trying to get a grant for this film for 4 years.
Yeah.
And every time, either somebody within the grant or somebody else would say, that film's not possible. 4 subjects, and then you talk about no way. No way. There's no way your film is possible. You're breaking all the rules of documentary.
Interesting. Okay.
And I'm like, well, what if we just approach it with the most visceral format? I'm going to use basically little to no lighting. We're going to shoot high verite.
Yeah.
We're not going to rehearse anything. The film was shot in 17 days.
17 days.
Over 4 years.
Wow. Okay.
You can't overstay your welcome with the subjects,
Right.
right? Because you lose that authenticity that they would have on that first, their guttural reaction, right? And so part of the reason the film feels so different
Yeah.
is you are seeing, the very quick initial reaction, fly on the wall feeling, and that visceral feeling is not one, these aren't trained actors, these are real people.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So you need to be careful with how much time you're spending with them. Otherwise, the artifice of, formulaic documentary comes out.
Interesting.
And that's kind of what I wanted to walk away from.
Okay, I love that. So tell me about, well, first I guess I want to understand more about what you were seeing in AI that made you feel like you didn't want to be a part of it any longer.
Well, I mean, I saw, I quit that part of the industry in 2024.
Okay.
Right? And I saw where the technology was going, but I was also seeing how other people were using it.
Right.
And also my reputation, right? I had been somebody who had been producing technology, doing conference talks, speaking in that space. And for me to get my, I'm like, I don't think this is a good place for my reputation, depending on where it's going, right? And I feel like there's a kind of a better use of my capabilities, because one of the things I was good at in that space was storytelling, whether it was product, whether it was initiatives we were doing when we were talking with customers. And I'm like, I feel like there's a better use of this.
Right.
Right.
Of my talents. But I guess specifically, like, you're saying it was going to like sully your reputation. What was it about AI that you thought would lessen your reputation?
Well, I mean, it just took what people were using it for, right? This is the very early era of generative AI.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, this is just going to be like some very weird, meme manipulation, deep fake. It's the removal of autonomy, right? And I saw that and went, yeah, I don't know about that. Like, I got into this for curing cancer, weather predictions, and the
Right.
things it's normally meant for. And I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, you can do stuff. Those are tools,
Right.
but it doesn't seem like the best use of it. So I was like, I don't know. It just doesn't seem like an area in which I have a say in where it goes.
Man, I love that you're saying this, because for a long time, as everybody is preparing for the worst with AI and saying it's going to replace creative jobs and, you know, it's going to make our music and our paintings and our movies, I keep thinking that's the stuff that we all want to do, right? Like, we should teach it to do the things that I think collectively we are having problems with. Like, let's teach it, let's ask it how to like desalinate the water and to replenish the water supply and to like,
Yeah, but that's not what corporations make money on.
right. But do they make money on making artwork? Because that's the thing that I feel like gives life meaning, and to train machines to do that for us, like, that's not the thing we want replaced. What we want replaced is like the drudgery, the, you know,
Yeah,
the stuff that
yeah.
we don't want to do.
Yeah, it's supposed to be automation, right?
Right.
A large part about what I used to teach is that if a task is automatable right now, then it is a prime place for use of AI. And if it's boring and nobody likes to do it, perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
But the cost of implementing it versus the thing you're replacing, if the risk factor of both displacement and I guess what the, you know, who's, sorry, I was spacing the words here.
No.
No,
All good.
I mean,
Take your time.
it's also who's to blame if it goes wrong, right?
Okay.
If those aren't clear, or
Right.
the cost is too high, then that's something you stray away from, right? And we've dealt with this in years for like insurance and everything else, and you kind of just have to look at it and go, I don't know if it's worth if it's
Right.
worth it, right? And
Right.
that's how you've always done it. Now, in Europe, that's kind of how they've always prepared it, right? And so, again, when you are looking at the space, you kind of have to decide, do I have a say in it, or I'm going to go somewhere else? And I'm like, I'm going to go somewhere else.
I see. So you felt like it was just basically taking over, and it was going to be this kind of faceless thing that you wouldn't have a lot of, you wouldn't have a hand in creating past a certain
No,
point.
yeah, I wouldn't really have a say in how the technology is developed, how the guardrails are put in. There was just none of that discussion happening, right?
I
The
see.
minute it kind of appeared on the scene, it's like, we can save money by like removing
Right.
these jobs. And I'm like, you're looking at it wrong.
Right.
You're still looking at it wrong, guys.
Well, I love that you made that bold choice. I mean, that had to have been a hard decision for you to make. Like, I'm sure you were making good money, and you know, you had, well, I assume, had studied long and hard to be in that position to where you have a good job working in an emergent technology, and the decision to quit doing that and pursue the arts is pretty admirable. So tell me about making that decision and like how you in life pivoted that way.
I think a large part of me deciding to go into the arts was I usually try to trust my gut instinct. I remember getting an offer. This was shortly before, you know, a bunch of us were let go, right? Because like, you know, the AI layoffs are starting to happen, right?
Oh, interesting. I didn't even think of that aspect. So were
Yeah.
you seeing the writing on the wall?
Oh, I saw the writing on the wall like a year in advance. I'm like, oh, it's coming.
Oh, funny.
It's coming.
Okay.
In like early 23, I was like, oh, this is
I'm
I can
creating
do-
my own replacement.
right.
here.
I can see, you could just look at the, you know, the 10Ks for every company and go, okay, I can see how this math is going to work out, right? You can look at the quarterly reports, you can look at the annual reports and go, I don't know, something ain't mapping here, right?
Right.
And you just have to make a decision on, well, if I am going to go out of this, where do I go,
Right.
right? And
And you're like, I know a place where I'll make no money and it will be very difficult for me to.
I think it was more, what would I regret if I didn't go do it?
Ugh,
Right.
That's such a better way to say it.
I was like, I had at least a quarter of the film shot by then.
Oh,
We
okay.
didn't have two of the major interviews.
So wait a second, let me pause you there. So you were working in AI when you started making this film.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. And so how did you start stepping away? Like, tell me the actual process of you having a job and figuring out this is what I want to do next and slowly starting to make your first feature doc.
I think what the decision that really did it for me as I started looking at it is what excited me more of a challenge that I would want to accomplish, right? Like if money were no object and I just was allowed to do something, what would I do? And if the answer is this, and I have most of the pieces in place, I just got to be brave enough to just make the jump and like separate my comfort with having an income, then it feels like the right thing. If it means burning all of my retirement, then, which is what I'm doing,
Yeah.
then you got to go do it, because at this point, you know, films will probably outlast every tech company.
Right,
I
right.
mean, like, let's be honest. And having something that's expressive, that's fulfilling, that can employ others,
Yeah.
I think is kind of more admirable and more interesting of a problem, right?
Absolutely.
And if you think about it, there's really not that many people in this particular doc space. And it felt like a place where I'm like, I can try, one, to try to put my name out there. Two, to kind of see whether my premise of how I wanted to make docs would work.
Sure.
Like a large part of what I talked about earlier with kind of the artifice of traditional documentary, I'm like, well, everybody says I'm wrong, but what if I just try? And let's see who's correct.
And so were you a fan of documentary before you?
Very specific types of documentary.
Yeah, tell me, like what kind of documentaries were you excited about?
Like the ones that Herzog would put out.
Okay.
Herzog's one of my favorites, right?
Okay.
Just bonkers.
Yeah,
But
well, and tell me more, like what makes his films work for you?
I think a large part of what makes his films work is he does point out the artifice of the situation, right? Like
okay.
the volcano, my favorite ones, they put out two docs.
Yeah.
Two different groups put out docs on that subject in the same year, right? So
Wait,
go
and
look that one up.
And which one are those?
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm spacing the names of both of them, but just look up his filmography. Those are good ones.
Okay, and he did 2 volcano films back to back or something?
No, he did a volcano film and somebody else did a volcano film the same year
I see. And they're
about the
very
same
different.
subject. And he calls out the artifice of the entire filmmaking of it. It's great.
Oh, funny.
Right?
Here, let's stop right here for a second
Yeah.
and look out over this beautiful part of the lake here. So for those who are listening, David, describe what we're looking at here.
So this is the lake in Mueller. Locodoro is actually right over there. We've passed it a few times actually. And this was kind of the scene during initial lockdown when a lot of us were outside and, you know, a bunch of us sat at the steps and I was like trying to figure out what the heck do I do with all this extra time? And I started writing music. I hadn't touched music in 15 years.
Wow.
And so I was like, well, let's see what happens if I try to play music again. Okay, let's try to see if I can write music for the first time in my life. Oh, I can. It's not great, but it's there.
Yeah.
And so 2020, I kind of was like figuring out the pieces of how do you write music? What's this camera thing?
Right.
What? Oh, okay, how do I shoot a documentary? I've never shot one. I've made like GoPro vacation videos. I don't know what any of the pieces are. What's editing? Like
Right. And how did you learn all that stuff?
YouTube.
Seriously?
It's just a lot of YouTube.
So you cashed out your retirement from your AI job.
This is in 2023, 24.
Oh, okay. So this is previous. to that.
Previous,
Okay.
right? So during the pandemic is when I kind of getting the pieces together of like what I wanted to do. And I started thinking about which pieces I wanted to pull into the project, right? So the filmmaking, the music, and originally I wasn't supposed to direct this, by the way.
Oh, interesting.
I was like, I need to find a director, I need to find another producer. Nobody else would step up, so I ended up being the director.
So you were setting up, you mentioned your company a couple
Yeah.
of times. So were you setting up a company already, like within your understanding
late
of what you're doing?
22. Yeah.
Okay.
I tried to like start a business. You know, it's good like tax benefit if you start it up and it's an LLC and you start buying equipment, and
Yeah.
you know, you have some benefits of having that.
Right.
And so I was like, okay, what pieces are the components of this production company? Okay,
Right.
there's the visual aspect, there's the music aspect, there's the post-production aspect. Okay, let's start like, you know, gearing up, figuring out what skills are needed, seeing which people can help out. And it's just a lot of solo endeavors and working with kind of individuals who would later on become collaborators for the film. So it was just this really, really slow process.
So, okay, you sound very targeted and very smart about this endeavor in a way that I certainly was not when I started out. But I guess that makes sense coming from where you were coming from, which is you were a working professional, you had some money, you were sort of used to the way corporations worked, and you know, thinking of this as like a second career as opposed to like an art practice or something.
Yeah, it was never supposed to be my main career, but I always liked product designing and problem solving, right?
Okay.
And those two kind of go hand in hand in that figuring out what the market needs and then also figuring out the problems that everybody says impossible was my day job.
Got it.
So-
Yeah, so you were using that same skill set towards documentary filmmaking.
As soon as this problem showed up where everybody says it's impossible, I'm like, let's go. You can play this game.
So what was it about the film that people were saying was impossible? Because let me for those again who are listening who haven't seen this film because it's just coming out, let me give you a little bit more backstory. So it's about 4 restaurants here in Austin dealing with the pandemic and basically taking us through how they survived this period of uncertainty. And that's kind of the jumping off point. And for me, what the film became was this meditation on what a restaurant symbolizes for the community, what it means for the people who created the restaurant, and why it's important to be resilient in the face of adversity. Is that a pretty good summation, would you say?
Pretty good, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the large part about that you know, we went in thinking we'd be making, and I really feel sorry for your editor here. We are jumping all over the place. But just like the film, nonlinear time and storytelling is one of the things that they told me wouldn't work for the stock. And I'm like, I think it'll totally work,
Yeah.
right? So you know, the editing became a real adventure. But what were we talking about?
Well, luckily our listeners are used to hearing us have wide-ranging conversations, and you know, we aren't sticking to a script necessarily. We're kind of just going off of what we find interesting in the moment.
Yeah.
And to me, what's so interesting is that you sort of start with this premise of like, this is about how restaurants react to the lockdown, and it became much more of a meditation about the purpose of a restaurant. And
Yeah, we went in going, okay, I went in thinking I'd be making a 30 or 40 minute episode.
oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay.
And by the first sit down interview, thinking that this is the running joke of documentary, right? You go in, you think you actually know what's going on.
And you
First
quickly
interview,
find
you're
out
wrong.
You have no idea.
Second
Yeah.
interview, you find out you're on a much bigger story,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And now you are
That's-
on this
that's
train.
If you're doing it right.
Yeah.
That's what happens. You know, if basically you set out to tell a story and it's the exact thing, you might want to reconsider your project.
Yeah. I set out and then we were like, oh, we are on a long train ride. And I think everybody on the project who, you know, either came on, dropped off, came back on later on, were like, this is going to be a very, very long process. David, are you sure you're up for this? You know how long this might take you?
Right.
I'm like, I guess the worst thing would be to just drop it at this point, because if I don't tell it, then nobody will.
Right.
And we're all gonna miss the opportunity to learn the lessons that were learned during this time. This story will be lost to time, and that's something I didn't want to happen.
Well, and let me stop you there.
Yeah.
Because I was curious watching it why that particular story appealed to you so much, because that's a really large, complicated, hard story to tell, is, you know, the restaurant industry's reaction to COVID. Like, what was it about that you felt like, I have to tell this?
I think what happened is, in making this film, as a relative introvert, I don't understand why I like going to a restaurant. It doesn't make sense on paper, right? In Fiore's line in the opening part of the film, you don't need a restaurant to eat. You need a restaurant to be seen.
And hence the title, To
Hence
Be
the title.
Seen.
And I answered part of my own question of what it's like to be seen. That's kind of the purpose of why restaurants exist. But the existential challenge now of you're taking that thing away. COVID took it away,
Right.
right? And now you have that question of, okay, well, if you don't have that, then how are restaurants going to function and what is their purpose? And that's the reason that the film's like, oh, there's a huge existential challenge in this film. And that's what drew me to the story.
So you saw an opportunity for a relatable hook and knew that there was a much more profound meaning behind just how does a restaurant stay open during COVID?
Yeah, it was an ultimate test of why do restaurants exist.
Yeah.
What's the best way to tell it rather than get the most existential threat possible,
Right.
that a restaurant could have in more than a century.
Yes. I mean, watching it was a little bit difficult to relive. Difficult's not the right word. I think it's more like that's a time that a lot of us, or at least I'll just speak for me personally, I think have chosen not to remember very clearly on a subconscious level. So for example, last night when I was watching the film with my wife, there's a scene where snowpocalypse happens.
Yeah.
And it's shortly after the lockdown. Restaurants are hanging by a thread, trying to figure out how to stay in business, stay relevant. And then we're all hit with basically a record snowstorm that just takes us out at the knees as a city.
Yeah.
And they describe it from their perspective as happening around one of the biggest restaurant holidays, which is Valentine's Day. And I had completely forgotten that time frame. I, of course, am aware of snowpocalypse. I remember our version of going through that. But the fact that it lined up with Valentine's Day was bizarre to me. And I even asked my wife, I was like, wait, are they talking? Oh, they're talking about snowpocalypse. And she's like, yeah, what did you think they were talking about? And I literally didn't remember because of the timing. So what I'm saying, I guess, is that like your film is this like necessary, important record that I think a lot of people probably are going to have a hard time voluntarily wanting to remember.
The film it acts in two places, right? Like it functions as a way to process the trauma of what we just went through collectively. Like I think that's why it potentially has a worldwide audience, because other people want to see what it was like here.
Right.
And the world encountered this, right? It's not something that was just purely local.
Sure, it's relatable.
Right?
Yes, global.
So that's one aspect of it. But the second aspect that I think is maybe a bit more important is it provides this time slice to understand how we, the patrons, have changed since then. We are part of that problem, and I think irreparably, it will take decades for it to recover, right? Like we become less patient, less personal. We don't do the same cordial things as we used to. And that's extended past things that are just restaurants, right?
Yeah.
I think that's extended into the type of hyper individualism that we've kind of gone into.
Right.
And you ask, why do people not like going to the things like theaters anymore? It's like our viewing habits have changed. We have changed.
Right.
Our preferences have changed.
Right.
And so we don't have a record of that.
That's fantastic that you saw this story as like a lens through which to talk about all these things. Because I forget his name. It's the chef from Pho Craft who makes the point that we all became so dependent on food to go in a way that didn't really exist. I mean, it did. Like you still ordered takeout, but it wasn't like such an ordinary thing the way that it's become now. And that we all become more isolated and more concerned about ourselves rather than the collective. And he saw that as
That's something that he recognized very early on. It's
through takeout orders. Yeah.
And Tyson Nguyen, who owns some other pho restaurants and adjacent ones here in Austin, noticed very quickly that what was actually happening is people became more insular during that time,
Right.
because that's what that kind of worldwide, that it is that removal of autonomy that forced us more insular.
Right.
And I think the lessons that we can learn from what that does to a society, if we don't have a lens on it, we're not going to know the solution to it. Right? We're not going to want to regain ourselves as a community if we don't understand why it happened.
Right.
Right? What's the function of why that happens to us?
That's fascinating. One thing about your film that I really loved is it reflects your taste as a customer of restaurants, and you focus on Loca de Oro, foreign and domestic, and LeRoy and Lewis barbecue, and then Pho Craft. And so the top three, and I apologize, I don't know Pho Craft very well, but the top three are all basically considered like fine dining restaurants. And it struck me, I was like, for a first-time documentary director to approach chefs on that level and get their buy-in at such a precarious time really took some, not only guts on your part, but like some real salesmanship, I would imagine, to like get them to buy in on this.
So they have to trust you to tell their story.
Yeah, so
Right.
how did you do that?
And I think that, I think the authenticity goes both ways, right? So like if they understand me and I'm authentic about who I am, then it's a lot easier to get them to participate and help me tell their story and bring that out for the screen.
Right.
Right. I think that my focus on trying to tell their story correctly to the audience without the artifice of traditional documentary, without kind of asking them to rehearse or repeat things, and kind of guiding the questions and the discussion to make sure that it's represented correctly was number one. Like, I didn't want them to get to an emotional place that was fabricated. I want them to do something that's genuine. And in order for them to do genuine stuff, it's important for me to do genuine things in terms of how I present myself, how I ask the questions, and how I live, right? And I think that those pieces are why a lot of documentary, whether we like it or not, is still driven by the documentarian's ability to get the trust and get the story out. Unless it's like pure archival, sure.
Right.
Right. Like,
Right.
but it's a found footage, maybe you don't have to do the interview, but in a situation in which you are doing an interview, that is a high requirement. But that's also why you saw me change up my interview style in the film. I don't know if you picked that up.
Tell me about that.
So we start the film traditionally, sit down interview.
Yeah.
Right? But by the second half of the film, when we're out of COVID, we're out of the ice storm, we're in 2022, they're not sitting down anymore. Those interviews are conducted
while they're
in their space, because their body language says a lot about.
I didn't pick up on that, and now that you mention it, I see it completely. Yeah.
And we got stuck, because what happened is I started making the film, and then we put an assembly together, and I'm like, it's just a bunch of talking head. I really hate this. It's just like, I don't know what to do.
Right.
And for a year, I struggled with what to do. So from 2023 to 2024, for a full year, from like July to July, I was stuck. Film didn't make progress. No interviews were done. Nothing.
Wow. Okay.
And
tell me about your mindset in that year. Were you like, all hope is lost? Were you in kind of a dark place, or were you like, I'm gonna take some time and figure this out?
I took some time in late 23. I took kind of a trip across the US.
Okay.
And we, as a team, they kind of all took a break, and then I went out and just kind of did my own thing for a bit. And I invited Sarah Nathan from Foreign and Domestic up to the Pacific Northwest to go mushroom hunting with one of my friends, because I needed like an insert of them foraging, because that's part of the story. And we get snowed on the backside of a mountain to pick white, matsutake mushrooms, which are white. So can you imagine looking for white mushrooms in the snow?
In the snow.
But in doing so, what did I accidentally do? I shot complete handheld for the entire time.
Right.
Complete handheld.
Because you're hiking, sure.
Right. And then I had to drive back to Texas within like 6 days
Okay.
to capture them putting that stuff on the menu. But what did I do differently then is I actually was in the kitchen with them and mic'd them up in the loudest place possible, right under the vent hood with everything. And it felt so visceral that short film went to festival.
I
Went
saw
to Doc NYC.
It premiered at Doc NYC, which is no joke. I mean, that's
Yeah.
hard to get into. That's a very well-respected, prestigious documentary festival.
And I think when I saw a room of 200 people go dead silent and be immersed in that, I'm like, that's the formula. That's how we're going to do it. And
Interesting.
that's why we changed the interview style to do that.
So in this year where you felt like, oh yeah, let's go this way, where all hope is lost, you basically pumped the brakes and decided that you were going to make another film, essentially. Like you were going to film your subjects in kind of a new way.
Yeah.
And just try something different. And that unlocked the answer for you.
Yeah, at least a way forward. I still didn't have 2 of the subjects. But by the time that film was available, or at least available on Screener, kind of the last 2 subjects kind of finally said yes.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So maybe we can jokingly say that they waited to see that and to know that I could actually do it. I don't know, but
Okay.
It's a running joke.
Yeah.
But the timing worked out such that, okay, that came out. Now I can interview the next 2 subjects, or at least within the story, there's a potential to have the right pieces of the story available to complete it.
And I feel like we need to stop here and acknowledge where we are. So you narrate here, and I'll shoot shots of the restaurant. So tell us where we're standing here, David.
So we are standing in front of Locadoro right now. I'll turn around here. This is one of the restaurants that is featured in the film, and I've, would pass this during so many of my workouts, even during the pandemic. And their story, they were closed for such a long time that I'm like, I have no idea what they're doing.
Right.
How are they still operational?
Sure.
And when I got them to say yes to doing the story, I still kind of didn't really know what they were doing.
Right.
And not until they sit down for the interview.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, you did that to make it through?
Yeah.
Oh shoot, this story's way bigger than I kind of originally imagined.
The chef and owner, Fiore Tedesco, is a very deep, interesting, reflective man. And I love seeing him in the film and him talking about his growth and his understanding of his place, and not just being a chef, but being somebody who facilitates experiences for people, and like coming to a sort of humility about that, and that if he can keep that attitude, then what's on the plate sort of takes care of itself. And that seemed like a very deep, wise lesson.
Yeah, his ability to talk about the deep philosophical parts of society, humanity, through the lens of restaurant ownership was something I had never seen before.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I got to capture it. We're just going to keep on rolling, right? Like that was like a 3-hour long sit down interview, which really was the spine of the film.
Yeah.
And then you have the kind of the other stories that I had to choose which pieces to either complement or contrast his speaking points, right? And that's how we assembled which restaurants need to be in the story, which stories need to be shown in what order they should be shown in, right? And that's like storytelling 101. It's
Sure.
like it's not what's on the plate, it's what's not on the plate.
Well, and you have such a fantastic narrative structure where one of the restaurants wins a Michelin star and one of them goes out of business.
Yeah.
And it's such a great encapsulation of what it's like to be in the restaurant business, what it takes to run a restaurant.
The highs and lows of everyday restaurant ownership, right? Like
Right.
there hasn't really been a lens on this stuff really. Like aside from some groundbreaking original docuseries works like Chef Sable
Sure.
or, Anthony Bourdain's work,
Right.
I really haven't seen this part of restaurant ownership or what it's like under pressure from external forces.
Yeah.
And to be able to tell that story is kind of a nice bookmark for the industry. I think one thing that I was really happy about was seeing the reaction from the people, the working class, the people in the restaurant industry.
Yeah.
And almost like a rallying cry and a calling card to
Was that Fiore?
no, it's Adam. A calling card to what makes this industry tick, right? And it's been hard because people have left this industry.
Yeah.
They've lost so much of that institutional knowledge that, restaurants across the world have gotten, you could say, a little bit worse, but we're dealing with a generation that is a lot of the institutional knowledge walked out. It's brain drain, right? So like you are starting like over again, and to see restaurants do this over and over again with new cohorts, it's both disheartening, but also kind of rewarding because you're seeing them learn how to train and teach and mentor.
Right.
And
Right.
that is not,
It's a great country visit.
that is not seen in really any other work. And we really don't celebrate that. And this is one of the first times that we can actually focus on it. So
I love that.
Yeah.
So let's walk this way.
Okay.
And we're coming up to the end of our time here. So I guess I want to know from you what the reaction was from the chefs who you filmed when they saw the movie.
I was very, very concerned because I did what people consider like the worst thing to do is I didn't show them the film until the day of the premiere,
Wow. Okay.
which is a gamble.
Sure.
A huge gamble, because if you are wrong about that,
Right. Then
You're
you
in-
can have some upset subjects.
this is the reality of documentary, right?
That's right. Yeah. You didn't like artifice. This is as real as it gets, right?
I think one thing that, and on speaking about audio, that you may not notice is I can tell you probably one of the reasons that there aren't many docs on restaurants. Restaurants play music. They also
Yes.
have very loud things.
Yes.
And you can't really remove either of those.
Right.
So aside from dialogue, 90% of the sync audio was stripped out of the film.
Yeah.
And we
Interesting.
rebuilt the entire sound environment of the film in post-production.
Wow. And I
So-
saw that you work with Soundcrafter. Too,
Yeah,
Which
yes.
is
So we basically went in, re-recorded all of the individual kitchen components,
wow.
and then used sound design and like ambience to rebuild the sound environment. That's why it's mixed in Atmos, so you can feel like you're inside the restaurant.
Wow.
Now, you probably didn't get to because you got to see the 2-channel screener.
Right. Right. But if you see it in a theater, you will get that immersive.
If you get at
experience.
least the 5:1 mix
Yeah.
or better, you will definitely get that reaction. Or when we do the Blu-ray, if we can do the 5:1, 7:1 or higher
Yeah.
outputs, where we'll be able to give you that. But yeah, other than the actual theatrical experience.
Right. So did you accomplish your goal? Did you make the film you set out to make?
Yeah, I think so.
Awesome.
I mean,
Congratulations. Not
yeah,
every
I
filmmaker can
was-
say that. That's a huge accomplishment.
I was very surprised because I kind of had written myself off to, well, I'll finish the film, and if it's not good, then I'll go back to working in tech. And here's the problem: is I finished the film, and everybody's like, "Oh my gosh, it's good," and I'm like, "Oh, kind of is good. I kind of need to market the film now. I need to release the film," and that's become a completely new adventure because
Yes.
the world of distribution and festivals have changed since just in this last year.
Yes.
So dramatically that like now the rules are being rewritten.
Yeah.
And so I'm learning what it takes to market a film and get it out there in a market that no longer abides by the old rules.
Well, and in that way, you have a huge advantage because just in the same way that you taught yourself how to make documentaries, you can now teach yourself how to release them. Because the problem right now is that all the old ways don't work. And the people that have made a living doing things in the, old way are struggling because they don't know how to learn how to do it. And so the fact that you're kind of starting from scratch with your first film right now may not feel like an advantage, but it is.
I feel very fortunate that we made the decision to self-distribute early on, because now we can look for streaming partners and we can look for people and not have to try to sell the film. We can sell the partnership with different companies.
Well, you can also get creative and have like, supper club screenings, and you can make screenings events, which is basically what it takes now.
Yeah.
It's like putting it in a theater and hoping people go is not really a thing anymore. You got to make it a special event.
We've gotten very lucky with doing exactly that. For our first 2 major screenings, a lot of the restaurants actually showed up, and it was for the first time restaurants were seen as the heroes they are during that time period, and the work that they do, and like that's a very new thing to be given the platform of high cinema to demonstrate the work that they put in and the things that they actually accomplished.
I love it. That's great. Well, let's switch to our lightning round here since we're at the end of our walk. So what was the gateway drug film that led you to want to make documentaries? You mentioned Werner Herzog. What was like, tell me about the experience of seeing a documentary and going, I want to make something like that.
Ooh. You're gonna laugh. It was actually a bunch of the climbing films.
Oh, interesting.
Right?
Like Free Solo and
Valley Uprising.
Oh, I don't know that one.
I originally got into it to do because I do a lot of climbing and outdoor stuff.
Okay.
And we got all the stuff from like the Sender Films, like festivals, and you got to see, and I got to go to Yosemite and actually climb in Yosemite, and like that to me was such a gift to see that part of history. Like Valley Uprising was interesting because as somebody who didn't come from that world, it gave me what I felt like the history and the context to do it. And that was kind of like the gateway. And then the rest of the world, the documentary started showing up. I think another one that was prior to that, which was more of a series, was Chef's Table, right?
Right.
And that very first season, the one with like Alinea,
Yeah.
right, where he got cancer and he had to come back from that I got to go to that restaurant and experience it, and that taught me the value of things that are real world, real stories from real people that had to be put through the ringer to achieve what they did, right? And like a lot of these films help me understand, at least that's kind of like the side of people that I kind of wanted to understand, like the greatest achievements, but then the element of like just feeling things, man, that's like a Herzog or a Ken Burns kind of era thing, where you can do more retrospective viewpoints and more deep emotional research. And I think all of those films kind of sit in a different rung for me, where they kind of elevated aspects of there's kind of like different rungs of documentary that I look at that are more like action sports adjacent, and then you go into like civil and personal and like kind of deep person research, and then you go into this kind of highly subjective metaphorical stuff, and that's
like
kind
essay films or
you'll get so you'll get like almost like video essay like stuff that can move you in different ways. And you don't hear my voice in the film in To Be Seen, but you see my editing style change from the beginning of the film to the end of the film, and in a way that's a conversation I'm having with you about that time period, but also my growth and their growth at the same time.
An example of that from your film that I really loved was you interview the chef from Pho Craft in a tight medium interview frame, and he's flanked in the back by a big painting that was part of his restaurant. And for me, when I was watching it, I thought, oh, they're interviewing him in the restaurant because you're interviewing all the other chefs in their restaurants. And there's a moment at the end, spoiler alert, when you pop out to a wide shot and you see that that backdrop is in his apartment, and you see a little bit of the apartment around the edges of the frame, and then he gets up and walks out. And in that shot, without saying it in a voiceover, you're communicating the restaurant didn't make it. He has that painting at home. He's at home now trying to figure out his next move. And it's beautiful, and it's a great reveal. And I even out loud said to my wife, I was like, that was a really nice shot.
That was one of the most difficult moments to get right, because we are going to him after he closed his restaurant. So getting him into the point where he's able to process and talk about it again was difficult, but also coming up with the visual language without saying it in person about that, not everything can last, and that it still can be beautiful, which is something he says. And that's like something that it is a slice of time. We are seeing every restaurant in this slice of time. And there's some things that are still the same at the restaurant, some things are different. And even if you go watch the film and you go to the restaurant, some things are now a little bit different. And that's kind of the point.
It's profound, and it's very meaningful, and I loved that sentiment at the end. Okay, and so in the spirit of lightning round, let's go to, you're a very interesting person to ask this question to, because we're often talking to people who have made, 3, 4, 5, 6 feature docs. So you having made your first feature doc and a short doc, what would your advice be to somebody making their first project?
Well, I'm gonna buck the trend that people say, oh, you shouldn't do it, just don't do it. No, do it, but in my opinion, don't follow the rules. Following the rules only led me down bad places. It's be willing to break every rule in the industry when making it, because we're not pushing the medium if we're not doing that.
I love that.
And I think, something that I was good at work was pathfinding, right? And we would go and be like, we don't know how to solve this problem, and we don't know where to go. And when nobody knows the answer, that's a good thing for me, because that means that I'm in the right place. Because then you can go somewhere. And I think we need to be okay with doing that with more of these films, because if I had stopped at any point to listen to other people's advice and stop the film, or have done something to cheapen out the effect of the storytelling, then I don't think we'd have a film that's as impactful as this. And I think for new filmmakers, being willing to toss away some of the rules that made documentary too safe is worth it. I mean, I did a lot of things that were unsafe in terms of editing and style and approach. And I think that's the reason why it ended up decent, is because of those choices. But I think if we continue not pushing the medium, then we're going to end up in a place where it becomes an artifice of what it used to be, and its value in society will start degrading. And I don't think that's a good thing for especially where we're at right now.
Love it. What a great answer. And then last question, what is the thing you can't stop thinking about right now that is not film related?
That is not film related?
Yeah.
In what area?
Whatever. What do you what's the latest book you read? What did you wake up thinking about this morning? What did you read in the news that's rattling around in your brain?
I think one thing that we really don't understand right now is what it means to have a new normal, right? For us, I think there's this weird societal thing where we go in and, there's this expectation that we will be able to react to everything correctly and be able to mitigate everything. But I find that that's generally not true. I mean, my new normal of becoming a filmmaker and getting used to no income to finish this film was something I was not prepared for. Me getting to a new normal of, the industry that I was formerly in kind of eating itself alive and not being a thing I can really return to right now. Again, that normal has been upset. You're talking about decades of normalcy, I think, and our attention spans are affecting filmmaking. Our attention spans are, everything is a new normal, and what is that human effect that causes that?
Right.
Where our plasticity and our adaptation are capable of not only handling it, but surpassing it in certain cases. Like that part of humanity, which I think is one of the parts of doc that's beautiful, is we are studying that. And if we don't continue to study it, then I think we're getting to a place where we don't actually understand how we're doing all of this. So
Yeah.
and all of us live through different time periods. And so that's part of the thing that, you know, still at the back of my mind going like, well, how are we adapting to this? I have no idea.
I love it. Well, to bring it back to how we started, you're asking all the right questions, it sounds like. And
yeah.
I really enjoyed your film, and I am very inspired by your story. And so I thank you for making the work that you're doing, for being that example to people. And thank you for going on a walk with me.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, awesome. Oh, we should tell people where to find you. Where can people find you, your film, your work?
So the easiest place to find information about the film is tobeseenfilm.com.
Okay.
And then if you look us up on Instagram, that one's To Be Seen Film is the Instagram, but my production company is Narraforge, Narriforge. So narraforge.com, and then also the handle on Instagram.
Awesome. Cool. David, thank you so much, man.
All right.
All right.
Next time on Doc Walks. It's a rainy day in New York City, but Ben is not going to let that stop him from getting a one-on-one conversation with the impressive, the inspiring, the one-of-a-kind documentary powerhouse that is Penny Lane. So Ben and Penny take a seat indoors, out of the rain, to talk about Wild Inside, Penny's brand new doc about Flacco the Owl. They're not gonna stop there though. Penny's got a slew of films and a ton of different ideas to discuss. And I'm just gonna go ahead and admit it. I am jealous as hell that I wasn't there to sit face to face with Penny and have this talk. So I'm gonna be stuck listening to it, just like you should, next time on Doc Walks with Penny Lane. Doc Walks is created, produced, and edited by my friend Ben Steinbauer of The Bear.
Hello. And my friend Keith Maitland of Go Valley. With help from our co-producer Dayton Thompson and editing by Riley Church. Follow us at Doc Walks Pod on YouTube, Instagram, and LinkedIn.